Welcome to the Horror Hour.
I see dead
We all go a little mad sometimes. We get you.
Hello and welcome to the Horror Hour, place we discuss, we debate, we disagree on all things horror. I'm one of the co-hosts here, Yutaka, and today I'm joined with Liam.
Hello.
And if you can't tell by our backgrounds and our special guest, we are here to talk about Revealer. And so we have the director, Luke Boyce. I hope I pronounced that last name.
Yeah, no, perfect.
And is it Caito? I'd butcher the last name if I.
No,
so I'll just ask.
it's all good. It's Caito Aase.
Caito Aase, who's also one of the co-leads in the role of Angie. So first off, we're just gonna kind of start in because this movie was crazy and we loved all of it. So what was the process? Where did this come from?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so we basically, quarantine happened. This is about 2020, COVID 2020. And Tim and I have been working for a while on other projects. We've known each other for a long time. And we were both kind of like, well, there's this I don't know, I feel like, maybe there's a world where we can make a movie during COVID. We're just not doing anything, and can we like come up with an idea where it's small and it's enclosed, and maybe it's that the characters themselves don't have to interact, like it's just like one of those the kind of movies where there's like 2 or 3 characters max, and we kind of figure out, is there a way to come up with an idea where they don't have to interact. And that's where the Peep show idea came in. And Tim and I had been working, we'd been sort of throwing around ideas for a few years about a story scenario where the Satanic Panic was actually like, what if the Satanic Panic was real? Like, what if they were actually right? Essentially, is what we're trying to say. So that kind of played into it, and this kind of came. And obviously, as the script progressed, the non-interaction didn't really happen. I mean, storytelling wise, forced us to have to kind of move around that. But we did make a movie that we started filming in I think the end of July, and the process was literally that we were in one location and the whole crew quarantined together. We were given like one area of the hotel to all lit, and we just literally, food was delivered to us, and we were either in our hotel or we were on set, and that was it. And
like if you forgot your toothbrush, there was a runner who would go get it and put it in a plastic bag and tie it to your door and knock, and you had to wait until they left the floor before you could get it.
So it was intense. It was because there was just no rules on how to make a COVID movie. And we just wanted, we wanted everyone to feel safe, and we didn't have any issues. Nobody got, sick or anything. So it was successful, but it was intense. And that's kind of where this came about. But our whole thing was we wanted to make a movie during COVID, but we didn't want to make a movie that had to do with COVID. Like, we wanted to sort of work around the restrictions that a pandemic puts on you, but we didn't want to make a movie that sort of like exemplified that in the story. Like, we wanted to make a normal movie that could last forever and ever. You know what I mean? That isn't just sort of relegated to the time period.
No. So Caito, for you, I did really enjoyed your performance in this movie. Like, you were so sassy, snarky, but you also had heart, which just was perfectly balanced throughout. So obviously, with your own life and being a burlesque performer, did that allow you to find something more within the character of Angie?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I have done burlesque for over 10 years now, and I am a huge advocate and ally for sex work as well. And I think that upon reading the script, it's just so beautifully written that she's a human first and foremost, and this is her job. So I think being able to walk in with that understanding of that she has a whole rich world beyond being a dancer, that just remembering that's really what's going to bring her to life, was kind of the direction I was heading. I also was able to kind of draw on my own experiences. I have a very deep connection to my aunt, Patty. She and I, like, she would drop me off at art classes when I was a kid, and I would cry because I just didn't want to leave her.
Oh no.
Yeah. And now I find my brother and his wife just had a baby who just turned 1. So it was really easy for me to kind of dig in and find the driving reality behind Angie. To remember that one of the things that Luke and I talked about is like, Angie's a punk. Like, she was very much like deep in the 80s punk movement, and the not giving a fuck kind of attitude, but that it came from a real place and it wasn't a caricature of a punk or a caricature of a stripper. Like, she is a very real person.
I could tell.
Mean, yeah, I honestly, I loved both the performance, just the interaction you both had. But I guess then, Luke, I would have a question too. What was it like, I guess I would say, shooting the music video performance? Because that was also by far, I'm assuming that was all you as well, being a burlesque dancer.
Wow. Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that one. Luke, do you want to take the lead on how we started?
Yeah, that was the first thing we shot. And you know, it was sort of written into the script initially, that there was going to be sort of a montage, but it wasn't focused on dance. And when we cast Caito, she sent me these videos that she had done of her burlesque performance. And that was a big thing for me, was the fact that she sort of, had experience in dancing in that world a little bit. So I asked her, would you be interested in kind of choreographing something, like we kind of take this to the next level? And she was like, absolutely. And so we had actually we had been talking to Gunship, the band Gunship, who plays it, about featuring their music in the film, and they were like gung-ho about it. So I kind of told Caito, I was like, here, let's maybe work this into it. So she picked Dark All Day, which is one of my favorite songs, and it just worked so amazing. And it was so great because it was like we shot it a million times, and we never, I mean, other than poor Caito just like getting to the point of just not being able to like stand up anymore. 7 times,
I think, all the way through.
Because you don't even see, we have like this full cut performance. That song is long. Like, there's a 7-minute cut of just the dance that we're hopefully going to have on like a future Blu-ray. But it's amazing. I mean, her dance is amazing. And we spent like, we actually, shot it separately, like just some practice moves to kind of get a sense of what all the parts of the dance were. So we knew which parts to shoot. So it was very, specifically choreographed and worked. It was important for us to get that right, because it was such a big moment in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was so entertaining. So for Caito, for you, with Angie and Sally having such growth between them throughout the film, was there anything that you took away from having to create that growth in the movie?
Yeah, I was very lucky that walking into filming, I already knew Shaina. We were friendly. We had met because we are in the same kind of theater and performance world here in Chicago, and so we knew each other. And we weren't particularly close, but walking on set and knowing that was who Sally was going to be created such an environment, alongside the environment that Luke and Rob, our DP, and everybody on the crew created, just this really safe environment for us to go as deep as we possibly could in that relationship dynamic. Because again, going back to this idea of like a caricature of a stripper and like this caricature of this very Tammy Faye, Bible thumper, yeah. It could have been very, like, there are many campy elements to this film, but that was not something that we wanted to have be a campy element. We wanted it to be a very sincere relationship dynamic between the two of them. And I'm really lucky that I got to work with Shaina, and both Shaina and I come from like Shakespeare theater backgrounds. And one of the things I love so much about Shaina is her ability to listen in a scene and respond and just be so engaged and present with you. And when you're working in an 8x8 room for the majority of shooting, like that is absolutely vital. So, just I think that this film wouldn't be what it is without that dynamic, both on camera and off camera.
Yeah, you really did make it. It was the chemistry between you both was just fantastic throughout.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there were definitely some moments where we called cut and it was just like collapsing into each other's arms because we were just so invested in, and we're so invested in the characters and how they come together in the most truly unlikely of circumstances.
And this is actually Shayna's first film role, in fact.
Yeah.
So she came to us completely, she'd done a lot of stage work, obviously, but this was her first film, and that was that's quite a set to kind of come on and do for your first. And I think for Caito, this is your second, correct?
Yeah, second feature.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was, and I have to say, just like both Caito and Shaina, like literally, I feel like it was like we were like instant best friends. Like just there was an energy there. Like, first of all, they're two of the most incredible people that I've ever met in my entire life, and continue to be just like very close. We text constantly, and just I don't know, they feel like two of the best friends I've ever had. So this, just the energy and the goodwill and just I don't know, everything that they brought to this set, I think made it. I think the fact that it was COVID and it was so strict, everything was very strict. We were testing multiple times a week, and the crew got tired quickly. I think Caito and Shaina created an environment for everybody that not just felt fun to be in. I mean, they just had a great time, even when things were difficult. But also just, I think when everybody saw right away what they were capable of, we all knew instantly that this was going to be something special.
I'm gonna cry.
I love that. I mean, I knew from just watching the trailers, as soon as I saw the trailers and what we would probably phrase as bisexual lighting, I'm like, okay, this is queer rights, gay rights. I'm like, I'm already here for this. And then just more of the trailer played. I'm like, oh yeah, this is my vibe.
Yeah.
So I have to ask then, were there any, I guess just, why can't I now think of the word, improv moments then that during filming?
Yeah, I'm gonna just jump in. There's a moment where we got a lot of freedom. Like we stayed very true to the script, but we were offered a lot of opportunity to kind of work and play. There were probably gratuitous fuck words after fuck words from me. But one of the things that both Shaina and I would think she would agree, is that we wanted to keep and preserve in the film is that there is this kind of undercurrent of attraction to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we didn't want to like be browbeating about it, but we really did want to kind of like sprinkle it in there. And the moment where Angie pulls Sally through the wall and we had that moment, we told Luke, we were like, we really feel like we need to keep this in the film. Kind of talking about what you were saying in regards to bisexual lighting and this being actually a very queer film. While, we do, I'm hoping that someone on AO3, just the sound of a clicking keyboard writing this fan fiction, but we didn't want to be too heavy handed with it, but we did. I think that it's kind of inherent in the vibe, and Luke allowed us that space, that wiggle room to improv that and say, we really want to do this. The opportunity that Luke gave me to choreograph my own dance piece. And we also had some moments where we got to sit down with Luke before we shot each scene and say, is this true to what the character would say? Talking with Michael and talking with Tim and just being very closely interconnected. We did have a pretty big say in what we got to express on camera. So I'm eternally grateful, because I know that's not a typical experience in terms of filmmaking.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
as you know, this is a and I think what'll surprise people is that it is a character piece, and as a character piece, you have to. I knew right away that I needed to let these characters come out of who Caito and Shaina were, and it was amazing right away to find out that they were both queer people. So that was an amazing perspective to have, because like Caito said, it's not necessarily in the script the way Angie sort of, there's obviously part of the twists of the film, without being too spoilery, is to we're revealing prejudices that Angie has, you know what I mean? Where you think for most of this that she's, being the one, not judging, but that's not entirely true. But I think what Caito brought to it is the potential that maybe it's not just prejudices that are under the surface. It's something that she doesn't even know really, or has fully looked into yet. So I think there's a fun thing with that, as this, Sally, the character of Sally, kind of helps reveal who Angie is in fullness, while Angie is also helping reveal who Sally is in fullness.
Yeah.
I fucking love that. That's amazing. Speaking of now, also then thinking about just the scene where Angie is pulling Sally through, but there's also some practical effects. And I would just like to talk about the designs for those. We'll just call them monsters for the time being.
Yes. I hope I didn't give too much away with the wall.
No, you're fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll know what moment I'm talking.
So we so the intent of the film was to have everything be practical. We didn't know, we had a very small budget, and we didn't know what we were going to be capable of in terms of posts. So we didn't want to plan for, or we didn't feel comfortable planning for just guaranteeing that this was going to have CG or this was going to have CG. So our intent was to go in and have everything be practical. So like, for instance, the moment, and you kind of see it in the trailer, so hopefully hopefully not being too spoilery, but the moment there is sort of a demon snake moment with Angie and Sally, that had a practical snake that was being puppeteered on set. But with our timing, we only had about 13 days to film, and practical effects take up like a day. Like it's just so hard to do. So we didn't get it as much as we wanted to. So we had this amazing opportunity afterwards to augment some of the practical with CG to just clean some of the stuff up, which I think turned out amazing. We had some brilliant artists come on board and just help give us their services for very little amount of money, less than they're worth for sure. They're just, amazing human beings who believed in the project and helped us kind of, take it over the hump a little bit, as it were. So yeah. And Brian Zurich was our effects person.
What a champ.
Yeah,
what
just
a
amazing.
champ.
He designed our main monster.
Did he? Oh, that was so cool too.
Yeah,
I can't wait for people to see that.
That was exciting. It was really fun for me to be able, we had a few different ideas of how that was going to go. There was a couple different options we could have gone in, but ultimately it was just like, we have this opportunity to have like a creature, right? Like an actual just full on monster in the film. So why don't we just do that? And Brian came in, designed this incredible creature, and once we saw it I remember we did a screen test of him in the booth. It was great, and as soon as we saw it, it was like, oh, this might actually work.
Yeah, he also did all the makeup as well. Like he did the SFX, but he also was the makeup artist. So both the appliance that happens, any of the appliances and all the gore happened, but he also did the like pink eyeliner and
I love
and
that.
we had a lot of makeup tests in terms of what Angie's makeup was going to look like, so that was an opportunity for us to play too.
Well, speaking of the makeup, obviously you got good makeup from it, but something I did love was your outfit. It was just so ridiculously 80s, and so over the top camp. What was your thought when you seen it?
So again, keeping in mind that we shot this during lockdown, so our costumer, Hallie Sharp, who is a tremendously amazing human, she delivered a giant IKEA blue bag full of costume pieces to my apartment that I then schlepped upstairs, and then we FaceTimed each other to try things on. So there was a slew of things that I tried on, and ultimately we landed on this very cool look. And so when it was like when I got to be fully done up in full high drag, I was like, this is like what 8th grade me wishes I looked like. You know, like there's like a big part of me that's very punk, and like getting the opportunity to roll in that first intro when Angie walks in, it was like I felt so badass, and it was so fun to lean into it. And I also really appreciate, Hallie and I had a very lengthy conversation about you know, Angie is a stripper, so like talking about 80s style plus the fact that she's a sex worker. And she was so respectful and so understanding of my needs in terms of comfort in how I was hoping my body would look on camera. You know, there are a lot of things that we think about in regards to this. And I think that both the costume that we landed on, and specifically, I keep going back to the dance scene, but going to the dance scene, having it be from the perspective of this is powerful for Angie, and less so about, you know, what the customers may think. It was very much for her, and I think that the costuming really lent itself to that too.
Oh, it really did. When you started doing that, I was just going, whoa, yes.
We out here.
Liam and I were just like messaging back and forth. We're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I'm obsessed. Well, also one of the things that we really wanted to rely heavily on, because we have such cool neon lighting in this, is the fact that my costume is reflective. So we really wanted to pick up on those tones that Riz was creating in the lighting, and that Luke was framing up. So it was really cool to have like a mirrored outfit that could reflect all of the lighting happening around.
It was such a great scene.
Yeah.
Speaking of that scene, well, also just the soundtrack. I missed you said who was the band that did that, because I loved the soundtrack, by the way. I feel bad for missing that.
Oh no, yeah, it's a band called Gunship. An amazing synthwave band from the UK. I highly encourage.
Hey!
Yay!
Yeah. They're so good. They've got 2 albums out, and I think they've been working on their 3rd one for a while. They were working on it when we were shooting, even. So I'm hoping that comes out soon, because they're phenomenal. Absolutely. Yeah. They actually just did a collaboration with, I don't know if you're familiar with Carpenter Brute at all, but he did the sound. He's another dark synthwave artist who did the soundtrack for was it Blood Machines, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So incredible. So you know, just incredible. They do the best synthwave cover of Time After Time.
It's so good, it makes me cry.
Yes.
I'm looking that up later, because I just
go Spotify, check them out. They're incredible. We also had so Alex Cuervo did the score. And Alex is frequent Paper Street collaborator. He did The Pale Door and Scare Package, those movies. Just incredible artist. And then we also had an artist basically write an original song for the film that's in there. It's the hair metal song Saint and Sinner that plays when we first see Angie walking.
That is I was going to reference that in my question, because that was such an awesome scene. So that's amazing.
Yeah, we're actually hoping to I don't think this is a secret, but we're hoping we're gonna release that as a single right before the film. So yes.
I also I got to meet Alex in person, because the weird thing about working on any film, but this film in particular, is we didn't really get to meet everybody that was involved in it. But Shaina and I got to go to Austin for the film fest out there, and we got to meet Alex, and he was saying in the Q&A there that one of the things that he really was trying to play with in terms of score was this very synthy electronic thing while we were in the real world, and then when we go to Act 2, that it would get more natural and more that it would drift away from the electronic and become a little bit more acoustic, because we're like stripping them down. So I thought that was it almost makes it so that the music is a character in the film too.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, I think in the second part of the film, he brought in some incredible instruments. Like he's playing like a bicycle tire with a violin bow. There's like weird, all kinds of weird things down, just but organic instruments versus, you know, the booth section, which is all kind of synth, you know, kind of 80s based synth. So
yeah. So with the location for both sides, for Act 1 and 2, for Act 1, was that like an actual place, or was that somewhere you created yourselves?
The whole movie.
I love this question.
The whole entire film, except for the exterior of the building, is all one set that we built in a warehouse. So yeah.
Nice.
That.
Yeah,
We
it was pretty
legit.
incredible.
We had an old office supply building where the front half was like the retail space and the back half was the warehouse where they had kept all the product. And so we had our holding area in the retail space, and then they built an entire set in the back. So the whole adult video store is there, and then they could tear everything down and put up the Act 2 set. So it's all in that one space, which was astounding. Like walking on set each day and being like, where are we now?
It is crazy. It is weird. And it was fun because when we were building the whole thing, you know, we went into the space and it was completely empty. And we got to basically draw out the way that this whole entire bookstore would be laid out. And, you know, my DP Rob Stern and I were able to just block the whole, you know, first part of this, you know, film, you know, just in the space that we imagined it would eventually be this, you know, this bookstore that we could essentially come, you know, create out of thin air, which was incredible.
Amazing. Like it just looked so like it had been there forever. Like, so that's so impressive.
And it felt like that too. Like walking into the amount of detail that Sarah Sharp and everybody put into those sets when you walked into the space, it's just like every little thing was thought about, whether it would be on camera or not. Like I felt like I was transported to a set that was like beyond like a Broadway play level kind of thought gone into it.
When it got torn down at the end of the shoot, I was legit emotional.
I cried.
I
was legitimately
very
cried.
difficult.
Yeah.
Because you got onto it and you just felt like you were in this place. Like you said, being there felt like it existed forever. So
yeah,
and that's all the
did.
credit goes to Sarah Sharp, who's was our producer, and she's just an incredible art designer, production designer. She just is just absolutely incredible, and also our construction foreman, Dustin Hoke. This was his first film actually. So
man, the amount of times he had to take down and rebuild things. I do want to say that one of the best things that happened was when we were done shooting all the booth scenes, they gave us a happy booth day party, which was we're moving out of the 8x8 booth and into the rest of the film. Until the last day when we realized we needed to go back and do pickups. So we had to So that was pretty funny, but it was just like this whole thing about like, oh, we're back in the booth, great.
But there's this really cool thing about movie magic where just a little tidbit is like when we were building this space, we knew that one of the things was that Angie and Sally would have to go down, you know, from their booth. And so he built Angie's booth separately from the rest. It was inserted into the bookstore, but it was built separately so that when the time came to go down, we basically lifted on hydraulics the entire booth up so that they could drop into subterranean tunnels, basically, which were also all built by them. So yeah, I mean, just as you know, this is that movie thing where you're just like, it's kind of it's like kids playing, you know, in a
so fun. It really is. It's so like building a blanket fort, but like on a massive scale.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I have to ask then, for both of you, what was your favorite scene to shoot? Or is it the same, or do you have different scenes that you were just it was your favorite to do?
My favorite to shoot, that's a good question.
I have so many
Um,
favorite scenes.
yeah, you go first, Caito. I'm trying to think because I can tell you what my favorite scene is, but I don't know if it counts as my favorite one to shoot.
Oh,
I mean, maybe the
I think there's two different things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there are two different things there. Yeah.
oh, well, if they're not
But-
spoilery, then what was,
Oh,
can
yeah.
you tell us both?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think probably the dance was probably maybe one of my favorite things to shoot for sure.
That was my favorite
because-
to shoot too. That was so much fun. I have a picture
Yeah.
of me covered in sweat at the end of it. Like, we did it.
Yeah. Well, and also part of that was just like as I was watching it, I was just like every single angle of this, she just looks incredible. You know, I was like, no matter how
Absolutely.
this thing gets edited, it's going to look so good. You could tell that right away. And then I would say my favorite scene in the movie is the one right before Angie and Sally are about to split.
Mhm.
And you know, and I'm trying to think how to say this without being spoilery, but there's just a moment there where Sally, I think, really, it's the moment you really fall in love with Sally as a character.
Yeah.
You know, because she does this thing where I think she's sort of putting into action you know, even though her beliefs are annoying up to that point and they're, you know,
They were.
overbearing, you know, there's this moment that she really actually is selfless and does this, you know, this act, I think that, you know, is really moving. So I don't know, it's just when I was editing it, I would edit the scene and I just would cry all the time because I'm just like, oh my god. And also you're just like, you see in that moment the real chemistry between Caito and Shaina. I mean, it's just electric.
Thanks. Yeah. I agree. All of it was my favorite. Yeah, the dance scene for sure was my favorite to shoot. But in terms of as a theater kid getting into the meat of it, there are two distinct parts in Act 1 and Act 2. Act 1 being anything once Sally and Angie are in the same space, that kind of back and forth where we're being quippy and witty with each other, but also starting to get into the like, hey, what is going on with you? Hey, you know, that getting into the meat of the character stuff.
Yeah.
Where we're still being like bitchy to each other, but we're having that like, okay, we're gonna let our defenses down a little bit more. Was really fun, especially the comedy moment with the thing.
Yep.
I'll just call it that. I know you know what I'm talking about. Love that moment, but I also really love any of those really deep, meaty moments where you know, Angie has a big revelation about her character. Shaina has a big revelation about her character, and the fact that we just each in those moments got to be the main character of our own story and highlighted in that way, and then just supported by this person who was just present to lift us up, both as an actor and as a character. I thought those were just those were some of my favorite moments as an actor to get to dig into and just be with the film fam while we went hard on some difficult stuff. So
Yeah.
I agree. Liam, I'll let you have the final question.
So just to obviously close it off nicely, what would you like people to take away from this film?
That's a good question. I love that question.
Who wants to? Caito, you want to take it, or do you want me to take it?
The first thing that pops into my mind is something that Shaina said, and I'm trying not to get tearful about it. What this film has taught both of us, and that's something that she brought up several times in conversation and throughout this process, was the importance to really care for each other and take care of each other, especially now more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
I think that that's really vital, and to also remember that people are people, sex work is a real job, and that it's okay to be gay.
Mhm.
Queer rights forever.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say that's it for sure. I think you know, for me, one of the most important parts about the film is that at the end of it, neither character has absolutely required the other to change. I think
I love that.
they both come together where they are, and they do change. Don't get me wrong. There is an arc, you know. I mean,
Mhm.
Shaina, especially Sally, has changed for sure, and I believe Angie has changed as well. But they're not requiring the other person to change, and I think that there's a lesson there in terms of how we interact today. I think social media, especially,
Yeah.
is sort of forcing people to have to move farther and farther into these boxes of acceptance. And I think that's not to say that there aren't places where we need to change as a human race. I mean, there's a lot of bad
Mhm.
crap out there and a lot of bad people, but I think that ultimately what we have to do is we have to interact with each other on each other's terms. We have to know who everybody is, and I think that's what the story is about. It's about two people who couldn't be farther apart having to learn how to understand each other and who each other is and come to love each other for that, you know, warts and all. And I think
Yeah.
that's a hard lesson for a lot of people, but I think it's extremely important now more than ever.
Absolutely.
Oh, most definitely.
Well, I just want to say thank you to both Luke and Caito. This was seriously an honor and a pleasure. And to those listening or watching, Revealer comes out June 23rd.
Yeah.
Please go watch it. It's so fucking good. Like, it is really good. So thank you, Liam, as well. And with that, I'll just say goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so much. Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.